Fast 9 or F9, whatever you want to call it, has been delayed by a year. So with the franchise hitting some speed bumps, that gives me a chance to rank all of the films so far. So let's get straight into it. The Fast and the Furious franchise, from worst to best, ranked.
All right, fire 'em up! We go live in 5. It's time for ignition and straight automobile pimp. Let's do this. Go.
The second Fast and Furious film has a few problems. The first is that its characters and story are all a little generic and stereotypical. Really, this is just a generic, standard crime story that happens to feature fast cars and action. The second problem, and probably the most major problem of this film, is that the main attraction, the main feature, the biggest star and best thing about the first film was missing in this one. Yes, this is the only Fast and Furious franchise to not at least feature a small appearance from Vin Diesel. And his absence is noticeable. The film does introduce us to Tyrese playing the role of Roman. He's an interesting character, I suppose, but he's no Vin Diesel. Ultimately, it seems this Fast and Furious film just didn't have a full tank of gas and it was a little boring.
Almost over now.
Life's simple. Make choices. Don't look back.
The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift.
But you don't have to ever quit. Ain't gonna take it no more, since it's almost over now. Almost over now.
Tokyo Drift is a big step above Too Fast, Too Furious. It introduced director Justin Lin into the franchise and he really brought in a new energy and he kind of revamped the series. The problem is that this film feels so disconnected from the previous two. It takes us to a new location featuring new characters and that's kind of all it does because it's still just a generic crime thriller story featuring stereotypical characters and big cars and action sequences. Where this film shines is in its use of on-location shooting, the whole region of Japan, the exploration of Japanese culture, and of course the introduction of the character Han. Sadly though, the main character of this film is simply awful, making even the best moments of this film near unwatchable. There's also a key sequence about halfway through, maybe 2/3 of the way through this film, that has since been retconned, remade, altered, or even completely ignored throughout the rest of the franchise.
Dominic Toretto. You don't know me. You're about to.
Surprise.
Nice clubhouse.
First we thought he died in an accident, then we thought he was killed in revenge. Now it turns out he wasn't killed at all. At some point you've just got to make up your mind, move on and tell us what happened. Where it all began, the Fast and the Furious introduced us to this family of characters, their fast cars and their street racing ways. As a standalone film, it's okay. But like the two sequels that followed it, the characters are stereotypical, the story's a bit generic, and I don't think they had a franchise on the scale that it ended up being in mind when they made this film. Luckily, this film does have some cool sequences, a great soundtrack. There are moments where cars are driving underneath big rigs, And there's a couple of little heist sequences as well, which are quite interesting. Honestly, this film gets a bit of a boost in the rankings because it started the ignition, introduced us to the characters, and established the world. Fast and Furious brought the original cast back for the first time in the franchise, and then it killed off one of the main characters in a really silly way. This film is all about love and revenge, but retconning in later films has made this one completely pointless. This is also the first in the franchise that really played around with believability and plausibility and of reality in general. It was the first that tried to push what was possible. The end sequence, for example, which takes place in an underground maze of tunnels, is a little hard to swallow. There's also Vin Diesel going full-on Batman detective mode. To do that. But honestly, seeing the original characters back on screen together, seeing them bounce off one another with all the history that they've got together, that's what really makes this film shine. And it's also got a bit of a darker, more moody, serious tone to it.
Speaker box blast, blast. Speaker box blast, go rat-tat-tat-tat. In fact, we about to go up like.
Shit!
We're gonna need a bigger truck.
The Fate of the Furious was the first in the franchise after the untimely death of Paul Walker, so all eyes were on this film. Could the franchise continue without its main character? And if it did, would it still be the same franchise? The answer? Sort of. It's possibly the most ridiculous of the main franchise films so far. There's a sequence involving hundreds of zombie-like cars in the streets of New York. There's an assault on a submarine military base. And both The Rock and Vin Diesel showcase some superhuman powers at times. Ultimately, this is a thrill ride of a film. It pushes the franchise into more science fiction fantasy area than it probably should have. And in the process, it's just a little forgettable, but still fun. It's also the film that decided that the villain up to that point, Jason Statham, wasn't actually a villain and that we should maybe sympathize with him, but we weren't given much reason for why that was.
We're going for a ride!
Tell me this is not happening.
From one ridiculous film to the next, Hobbs & Shaw, the first spin-off of the Fast and Furious franchise, is by far the most bonkers and ridiculous so far. This time around, two characters who started off as antagonists of the main franchise team up to take on a cyber-terrorist group led by a superhuman genetically altered man who calls himself Black Superman. Wow. Remember when this franchise was about street racing? Those were the good old days. Regardless of how far-fetched and ridiculous this is, it's a fun, entertaining film. There's lots of jokes, lots of humour, lots of great action sequences. The chemistry between Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson is really good. There's just a lot to enjoy about this film, as long as you ignore the far-fetched stuff. Sadly, the third act does drag a little bit. The whole film, in fact, drags a little bit because it's too long. But like I said, it's fun while it lasts in most places. Fast and Furious 6 is the first in the franchise where they came in with a clear idea and formula which they wanted to follow. Bad guy does bad things involving cars, good guys have to team up to take him down. Simple as that. It's good fun chaos while it lasts. The gang takes on a tank, they drive down the longest runway in human history, The Rock is there with his superhuman powers, and someone comes back from the dead. It's silly fun.
This is a world that doesn't play by your rules. Like it or not, you and your friends are a part of it now.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Furious 7 had a huge issue that it had to contend with. Halfway through production, its main star, Paul Walker, sadly passed away. So how could they finish it? Well, they got some stunt doubles, they used CGI, they even brought in his brothers who look a little bit like him, and they finished the film as best they could. Ultimately, this film serves as a send-off to Paul Walker, and it's a very worthy emotional one. Add on to that the cool, sophisticated Kurt Russell, Jason Statham as the relentless bad guy, a huge cool action sequence involving parachutes on cars, and you've got another fun entry into the franchise. That's elevated by the emotional core of the film.
Is all of this really necessary to apprehend two men?
One's a former federal officer, spent 5 years in deep cover. The other one's a professional criminal, escaped prison twice. We find him, we take him as a team, and we bring him back. And above all else, we don't ever let them get into cars.
Who knew that the 5th entry into the franchise would be the one that they finally get right? This is the first film in the franchise that's transitioning from what the series was to what it will become, taking it from street racing to more like heist team-up action movies, and it's got great results in the process. This is the first in the franchise, in my opinion, to really give the characters a fun, entertaining plot to contend with, involving a heist where they've got to do a lot of heist setup, a lot of comedy in there, a lot of cool action scenes in there. The third act of this film is absolutely amazing, where they're dragging a safe across the streets of Brazil, and this film adds Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson into the mix, who really gave it a much needed boost. So much so that this is arguably the first big, major, interesting villain that the franchise has had at this point. So much so that he's more interesting and likable than any of the main characters. In my opinion, Fast 5 is by far the best in the franchise. It honestly has everything going for it. You could say this is the film in the franchise that steered things in the right direction. Well, that's the Fast and Furious franchise ranked from worst to best. I'm sure you disagree with my rankings a little bit, so post them in the comments down below. Tell me what your ranking of the Fast and Furious franchise would be, and of course subscribe to my channel to get more content like this. Want to see the Star Wars films ranked? Want to see, I don't know, the Marvel films ranked? That's where you come, my channel. And of course I do film and TV reviews as well. Also, go over to Twitter and Instagram, follow me at @the_Grant Burton, where you can get my thoughts and opinions as I get them. Until next time though, that's all I've got for now. So thanks for watching.